This is Sideline Radio with Shaki Verado, episode number 12, The Real MVP, Stacy Mahoy. Not one or two or even three, but 8.
You're listening to Sideline Radio, a podcast by Sideline Society, where we firmly believe that it takes a village to raise a child and a sideline to support an athlete. In a lifestyle where schedules are hectic, to-do lists are overwhelming, and it's always time to go, Sports Mom of 3 and sideline guru Shaki Verado will help you navigate your life on the sidelines and redefine what organized chaos should look like. Here's your weekly ticket to take a time out. Huddle up and hear real talk from others who get it, while learning the best tips, hacks, and strategies to help you navigate your life on the sideline, one season at a time. If you're ready to tackle your crazy schedule and make memories instead of migraines, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Chief Sideline Hacker, Target Enthusiast, and French fry lover, Shaki Verado.
Hey, what's up, Sideline Hackers? Shaki here. Yes, you know Shaki rhymes with hockey and it's short for Shakira like the singer, except I only sing to annoy my boys. Welcome back to Sideline Radio. I am so excited that you decided to join me today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. You rock. I appreciate you. Today is super special because A, it's Wednesday, and I told you I was going to publish my episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays, but it's Wednesday. Why, you may ask? Well, just to let you behind the scenes, as I like to do, my littlest of the littles, Eli, decided to rough himself up yesterday. Enough to the point where Mike and I were in urgent care pretty much all night long to make sure he didn't actually break a bone in his foot. Turns out he was running around all crazy, as kids tend to do, and he ended up bruising his foot, but to the point where he couldn't put pressure on it. And you know me, good old Shaki, reminiscing about the oldest of the littles, when he actually broke his ankle last year, and I had to make sure my little EE wasn't in the same boat. So forgive me, but I decided to forego finishing up and publishing this episode until tonight when I'd have more time. And just in case you're curious, you can see Eli in his little foot wrap over on my IG story at Sideline Society. You'll notice that Maui is wrapped up too, because it's only fair. Anywho, this episode is special because I'm debuting the first of my second new series, The Real MVP. Now, if you're a new listener, first off, I love you and your sideline. And secondly, this is a new series that I'm starting on the podcast to highlight those stories and experiences that you told me you wanted to hear other sports moms talk about, the ones who've lived it. These are those sports mamas who's gone the distance, they've tackled the unthinkable, and they've lived to talk about it. I'm talking to moms of college and professional athletes. And in this episode, I'm talking to Stacy Mahoy, a sports mom of 8, a former collegiate softball player and coach who has raised and continues to raise multi-sport athletes, one of whom has a national and world title in powerlifting. Now, once this interview starts, her voice may sound a bit familiar to you, and that's because Stacy also hosts her own podcast called Eating Curveballs for Breakfast, where she offers words of wisdom and encouragement in support of the relationship between sports parents and their athletes. Her mission is to help you simplify your role as a parent so you can be free to embrace your child and love them as they are, as they chase down their biggest goals and wildest dreams. In addition to all of this, Stacy is also the voice you hear on Sideline Radio's Take 5 Friday editions, where she's serving up those words of wisdom and quick tips of empowerment to get you through the weekend. I am so in awe of Stacy and what she's been able to accomplish that I just had to have her on the show, helping me debut this new MVP series. So without further ado, please welcome Stacy Mahoy to our sideline. Hey, Stacy, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I met Stacy in a Facebook group for sports moms. One of the Facebook groups that we're in together is called Sports Moms United, and it's actually run by a mutual friend, Beth Jessup. So shout out to Beth. But so we kind of just connected. Stacy, was commenting on a lot of things related to like the emotional side of being a mom and being a sports mom and just helping with, getting through, obstacles and things like that. And she really just caught my attention because she just has such a way with words, I think. And I always tell her that. And so Also, just learning more about her. I'm just fascinated by her and her story. So for us, most of us, as sports moms, we maybe have one or two, or maybe three. In my case, three kids who play sports and multiple sports. Well, Stacy has 8 kids. Stacy has 8 kids, and if I'm not mistaken, all of them play a sport, right? Except for the little ones.
Yeah, the babies don't. The little ones don't. That's the oldest 5 have all played something. And then the younger ones are just turned 8, just turned 6, and 3. So they haven't really done a whole lot of anything. The 6-year-old has actually expressed interest in some inline hockey. And a friend of ours told us about the place that they go to offers free classes on Saturdays where the kids can learn to skate and they can try it out like for 10 classes and, get a feel for it before they decide whether or not they want to do it. So we had taken him to some of those a few Saturdays before football season came around in the fall. And then we had to stop because that started and wrestling started. And so now that football and wrestling have ended, we're going to try to start taking him back and seeing if that's something he wants to do. So, yeah, but the older ones have all played a few sports each. And then our daughter, she's 10, so she's the 5th out of 8. At one point was the youngest girl until the baby was born. So she has done flag football with her brother once. She's expressed interest in either dance or gymnastics. So we're in the process of looking for a place for her to kind of jump into that.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you find a way to be able to help them to express themselves independently, in their sport of choice. I'm finding that with my middle son. He's like, I don't want to play football anymore, or I don't want to try baseball, or like, he's just like, I don't know. He doesn't know what he wants to do, but he knows he wants to stay active. So I think it's important to, give him that autonomy, if you will. But if you can, just go ahead and take a minute and just tell us about your story. If you can tell us who Stacy Mahoy is. I know you have your podcast, and please feel free to shout that out, Eating Curveballs for Breakfast. And also, how could I forget to add this, that Stacy is that voice that you hear on Take 5 Fridays on the Sideline Radio podcast. This podcast you do, she is that voice. And I definitely wanted to get Stacy in because, like I said, I value her input so much, and I wanted to help spread her word and share her story. So go ahead, Stacy. Let me stop talking.
Thank you so much, Shaki. I'm so glad we crossed paths, and I am also so impressed with what you do. And I know that your Facebook group is newer and just kind of starting out, but I just love everything that you put into there, and it's so like professionally done. I've downloaded some of your guides and your checklists. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so awesome. And I was like, did she do this herself, or does she have somebody do it for her? And you said you do it yourself. So that's something I don't do. And okay, so who am I? I grew up playing softball, and actually was a little disappointed that that's the sport my dad signed me up for, because I went to this private elementary school. It's really tiny. We had a small playground, but me and this one other girl that was a year older than me, we'd always play basketball with the boys during recess and lunch. And so I really loved basketball, and he used to take me to watch basketball and baseball and football. And I wanted to play. He wouldn't let me play football. My dad wouldn't, and then so he signed me up for softball, and he told me, I'm going to go down to the community center. I'm going to sign you up for a sport. And I was like all excited because I wanted to play sports because I was kind of a tomboy. And he came home. He's like, I signed you up for softball. And I was like, softball? It doesn't even sound cool. Like it sounds weak, or like, what is softball? And I went there, and the way that community center had it set up, it was really a recreational league. So anyone who was new would go through sort of an evaluation. They'd, have us catch and throw a little bit, and then they'd put us into like groups, and then have the teams, I guess, split up sort of evenly. So it wasn't so competitive. It was just like a developmental league.
Yeah.
And, but I fell in love with it right away. So I enjoyed that. And then he signed me up for like a real league. Like that was a rec-ish league. And then this other one was Bobby Sox at the time. And when I went there, I guess the league I was in wasn't even considered experience, because they put me in as like, oh, you're not experienced, because that doesn't count really as
Oh, wow.
as the game. Because it was like, it was different rules. Like we wore shorts, we had more people on the field, you couldn't do a windmill pitch like full all the way around. I don't know, there's all these rules. So they kind of didn't consider it to be like actual fast pitch softball. So I went to that league and they were like, okay, you're a new person. And they did the same thing where they kind of they divided people up by experience levels and so on. And then the coaches would draft, right? And kind of the teams were to sort of, I guess, make the team somewhat even. But I was always on the team that lost all the time. I don't know, because I think the other teams were like, they had a coach and then they had the manager and the chaperone, and each one of those people could have a child on the team if they were on the staff. So they would kind of congregate like that. And so they would have all these people, these kids that were kind of good. And I was always on like the extra team that wasn't like one of the, mainstay teams.
Yeah.
But I learned so much my first year there. And I'm so thankful that I had the coach that I had, because she really broke it down and did fundamentals and basics with us. And those things are things that I went back to over and over again throughout my career. And I used to think to myself, like, what if I never had her? Because no one else did that after that. She was basically like the foundation. And I saw her after I had, got grown up, got married, had kids. And she was like, oh, hi, we saw each other at a game. And she goes, do you remember that team? I was like, of course I remember that team. Like we had so much fun. You taught us all this stuff. And I know we weren't that good. She was like, yeah, we lost every single game. And I was like, what? I don't remember that. Like, I knew we weren't good, but I didn't even know we lost every single game. So that just really like dawned on me, like how much kids really don't, I mean, if you're on a super good team or not, but like, I don't remember so much like how many wins we had or how many losses or, it wasn't really about that. So that was just so interesting to me that I totally didn't even realize that we had lost every single game we played that year. But I went on to play in high school. I didn't play any other sport, not because I was specializing, but just I wasn't interested in, I don't know, it never came up. And I guess, my dad knew I'm only 5'2", so basketball probably wasn't the best idea anyway. And I was pretty good at softball, obviously. So I got a college scholarship and, I had good grades and I did well in softball. So I wanted to be a softball player in college. That's what I wanted to do. People used to ask me when I was growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a professional softball player. There was not even a league yet, but that's what I would say. I was like, by the time I get there, there's going to be a league. And honestly, if I had kept saying it was true. I got to college, played a little bit, but then my husband and I withdrew from school, got married, we had our first child, and I was 19 years old. When we found out we were having our oldest daughter, to be honest, it was scary, but immediately it was like the two things that my whole life had been about, like school and softball. Those are my focuses. I did those things. I was good at them. Those are my priorities. Like immediately my whole world changed. And it was very easy for me to make the decision to walk away from that and to go take care of my family and to raise this child and get married and all of that. And thankfully I had a husband who was on the same page as me. So we were together since high school, like you said, our senior years. And he played football, ran track, played basketball, so multi-sport athlete. And I actually saw him for the first time at a track meet. So, and we were already, I believe, juniors in high school. So like we attended the same high school and I never noticed him freshman or sophomore year. That's how our high school is kind of big, I guess, for Hawaii. And actually, no, we were sophomores. I'm sorry. We were sophomores, but it was the end of the school year because track is at the end of the school year. And it was state tournament or state meet, whatever it's called. That was my first year running track. He was running a race, a 4x4, and he was like the second leg. And as a sophomore, he was like kicking people's butts. And I was like, that is a hard race, as a sprinter. Like it's long, it's challenging.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm like, either you're extremely talented or you're very determined and have good work ethic, right? So like I was impressed from the get-go. And I found out that he's actually both. So he's talented and he works really hard. So yeah, I was definitely impressed from the beginning, and just we both were interested in each other. We became friends, yada yada. Got married at 19, had our baby, and he actually told me before we ever got together, he came from a big family. So I asked him, I was like, how many kids do you want to have? He's like 8. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy, you know? And he literally
told you
said
that
8.
straight up, huh?
And I was like, he told me that shit. Like, we were barely knew each other. And I just knew that he came from a big family. So I was like, how many kids do you plan on having? He's like, oh, I plan on having 8. My mom has 7, so I'm going to have 8. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. Actually, at the time, his mom only had 6. His youngest sister was born after our oldest daughter. So he has a baby sister that's younger than our oldest daughter. Yeah.
I promise you I can relate.
So he literally said 8, and I was like, I told him.
So funny.
Go
ahead.
Yeah. So no, and I was like, well, I'm only having 2 or 4. That was always my plan. Like 2 or 4. You can't just have one, because I was an only child for 8 years and I was bored to tears. And I said, when I was growing up, I'm like, I'm never just having one. That's so boring. You have to at least have 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't want 3 because of the middle child syndrome. And I was like, I don't want to do that to my middle child. So we have to have either 2 or 4. That's it. And, you know, life was going along perfectly. I was like, I want to be done by the time I'm 30. 28 would be even better. Our son, who is number 4, he was born when we were 28. I'm like, good, I'm done, good to go. And yeah, God had other plans.
He sure did.
Yeah, and so people would always ask, like, when we were pregnant with 5, 6, 7, they're like, how many kids do you plan on having? I'm like, oh, 4. You know, this is not my plan anymore. Like, I give up trying to have my plan. It just wasn't working. So, yeah, but I got into coaching, and, you know, he coached football too. And then our kids, I wanted them to play softball because, like, my dad made me play softball and try it at least 1 year, and I fell in love with it. I'm like, you guys got to try it at least one time, you know, and if you don't like it, you don't need to play it anymore. So our oldest 3 are all girls. They all played. Our oldest one loved it. She played through high school. She was actually offered a scholarship to a Division II school and to JCs. And she chose to go into powerlifting instead. And then our other 2 daughters were like, this is not really our thing. You know, I'm scared of the ball. They didn't really care for it. And our second daughter, I actually thought was going to be really good at softball. Like, she was, like, I thought she was going to be better even than our oldest. She had more talent. It seemed like she's just more athletic, bigger size-wise, so she'd have an easier time, you know. And she just was never really into it. And I actually thought she was just lazy or something. Like, she was just never as, like, intense as our oldest one was.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got into boxing, and it was like a whole different person, like totally different athlete.
Wow.
And I was stunned. I was literally like from day one. And that caused me to realize that, like, when you help your child find their thing that they want to do, that's really all you need to do, because they will take it to the nth degree, you know. And I was just realizing, well, softball just really wasn't her thing. She was never into it like this. And with boxing, she was just so, like, committed. Like, everything that we wanted to see from her in softball that she never was all there at boxing from the get-go.
That is so interesting. I want to talk about that. I want to hit on that, but first let me rewind a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit more. I want to hear a little bit more about the point at which you got pregnant with your oldest. You were 19.
Okay.
And you got married, and you had to make that decision. I mean, clearly it was a, I don't want to say an easy decision, but it was a clear decision, right? You knew what you were going to do.
It really wasn't that difficult for me. Like, I mean, obviously it was like, dang, I'm just getting going. I redshirted my freshman year because I had torn ligaments in my ankle. So it was already during the season, but it was early enough to our coaches, like, I can get a medical redshirt. We'll redshirt you for this year, and then you'll be a redshirt freshman next year. Came back the next year, and the person that was in my position, that was supposed to be a senior that year, and she was really good. Like, I knew I wasn't going to take her place. And I was enjoying learning behind her because I was learning so much, but she got injured over the summer. And so she was out for that season.
Wow.
And so I had this opportunity to, like, get into that starting role. And I actually did that for the fall. Went into a bit of a hitting slump in the spring when we actually started season. And so the new freshman that had come on, which actually was a teammate of mine in high school, like, she was getting more playing time. And I was cool with that because I could understand, like, she was hitting and I wasn't. And so I totally understood that. And a lot of people were kind of frustrated and asking all these questions. And I was like, guys, I know exactly why I'm not playing. I know what coach needs. And if I thought that I deserved it, I would go to him and ask. Like, that's just how I felt. I'm like, I'm not the coach. My job is to come out here, work my butt off. His job is to make the lineup. If I had a question, I would go and ask him, like, what do you need from me? What is it that I need to do? But I knew exactly why I wasn't playing. And I thought it's a valid decision. Like, he wants offense. He wants to hit a bat in the lineup. So that's fine. And yeah, so then I ended up finding out that I was pregnant. And the first person I called, of course, was my husband. He had the exact same reaction as me, which included explicative. But but immediately he was like, okay, so what are we gonna do? And we were both on the same page from the get-go, which I admire so much about him, because I know that at that age, not every guy would be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was no doubt in our minds that we were gonna get married and we were gonna, take care of our kid. And he got a job and he supported us first he finished up his semester at school. I withdrew because I was like, I don't want to stay. The classes that I had, I didn't want to be in anyway. I was just in them because I had to be. And so I was like, I'm out. I'm not going to play anymore. School and softball just weren't, like, they just became so insignificant to me. Like, my family immediately became my world
Mm-hmm.
In an instant. And it's not even something, like, people ask if I regret that. I'm like, I can't. Like, I love my life and I love all of my children and I love my family so much that if that hadn't happened, none of the rest of my kids would be in existence. I wouldn't have this family. And so obviously it would have been nice to finish up my career, but I also didn't have any regrets as far as like, oh, what could have been. Like, I feel like I took it to the level that I wanted to, and I was doing well, and I was always giving my best effort. So I didn't ever feel like I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that I had. I didn't have any regrets of, oh, I should have done this while I had the chance. Like, I feel like I did everything that I wanted to do, or I poured everything into it. So it really wasn't that hard for me to walk away from. And we got married on March 17th. We just celebrated our 22nd anniversary. We got married on St. Patrick's Day. Our class
Congratulations.
was green, so it was like an appropriate and so our daughter was due to be born in October before both of our birthdays. She waited to right after her dad's birthday, so he was 20 when she was born and I was still 19.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I was just so, at that point, like, I had nothing else on my mind but being an amazing mom. And it was so important to me, that job that I now had. And the thing that bothered me, I guess, at that time was seeing the people who knew me as a softball player, seeing the people who knew me growing up and knew that I was doing well in school and sports. And they'd be like, oh, what are you doing now? I'm like, oh, I'm staying home taking care of my daughter. And almost every time the response was like, oh, is that it? And I was like, what do you mean, is that it? Like, this is like such an important, like, this is a super important job to me. Like, I want to do she's going to be this amazing human being, right? And it was really important to me. And it was just really strange that no one else seemed to value that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that for me, part of mistake that I made as a young mom was feeling the need to prove that this wasn't a mistake. Like, I loved my family and I had no regrets, and I felt like I needed to prove to everybody that I made a good choice. And now looking back, I'm like, you should have just never even cared about any of that, because I'm only realizing now, like, that process of these things that were in the back of my mind. And if I could talk to my 19-year-old self, I would be like, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Like, things are going to work out amazing. So just do what you do, follow your heart. You've got really good instincts of being a mom, and like, don't worry about what everyone else thinks. Like, just do what you know in your heart is what you want to do. Like, that's what I would have told myself, because I didn't always do that.
And all I can say to that is ditto, because you said exactly what I think. And the same, I mean, we share that. I also am married to my high school sweetheart. My husband was actually on his way to a D1 school in basketball when we found out we were pregnant. And he had to give up his sports career, he played, that's how I met him, on the basketball court, and so he gave that up, of course, for our family. And so, yes, in retrospect and thinking about it now, there was nothing to prove. There was just this new responsibility, and that's what, God had planned for our lives, and that was that. So I'm so happy, not even happy, I can't even think of the word, for lack of a better term to say, to hear that like, it really just warms my heart. And I think that other, moms and teen moms, or even just young moms, can hear that message, that, life happens, things happen, but to just keep moving forward. Right. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And I think for me, I just always wanted my daughter to know that we wanted her, right? Like, that we didn't look at her as like, oh, you're this kid that interrupted our plans and we didn't want you. Like, that was one of my biggest fears, was like, she was going to think that we didn't want her. Mm-hmm. And I never wanted her to feel that. So,
so this is the daughter.
It's hard to communicate that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
This is the daughter who is like the world-renowned powerlifter, right? It is.
Yeah, she got into powerlifting at 16. Actually, she did her first meet just before she turned 17, and after a few months of actual strength training. And even in that meet, she set the state records for her age and weight, the American records. And she actually tied a couple of the world records, but it wasn't a meet that you could set the world records in. So, but she set the state and American records for her age and weight in her very first meet. But she really loves that stuff. Like, she can work out. She just loves it, and so I love that she's doing something that she really wants to do and that she loves doing. Like, I know so many of us, even people our age, they're still trying to figure that out. Like, what is it? Like, what do I want to do? If I could do anything, what would it be? And it was inspiring to me to see her at 17 being like, this is what I want to do. Even when people didn't agree, even when people were mad at her because of the decisions that she was making, like, she still was like, I'm going to do this. And I actually admired that about her. And I told her that. I said, I am so proud of you that you can, at 17 years old, say that you're going to do this and this is what you want to do, and you're actually going to do it. Because there's a lot of adults that are stuck in jobs they don't like, or living lives they don't like, and they feel stuck, and they're worried about what other people are going to say or whatever. And so I told her that I thought that was pretty awesome. And even though things didn't kind of go the way that we would like, and she really felt like she needed to do her own thing. And she's actually she doesn't talk to me or my husband much. She talks to her siblings only. And that's really hard. And there's a lot of things that I know I could probably have done different. There's a lot of things that we just didn't know. Like, raising a strong-willed kid is a lesson. And a lot of what our society says, we did. And now looking back, I can see how that kind of maybe wasn't the best route in those situations. And so I've learned a ton from her. I've even told her that. I said, thank you so much for being the stubborn, determined, strong-willed person that you are, to really make me reevaluate like my beliefs and my thoughts on what it looks like to be a good parent. And so she really made me re-examine a lot of that. And so much has changed over the last few years. And I'm so thankful that we had that experience, and that I've gotten to understand and learn that there are other ways to do things that actually align much more with how I feel. So I spent a lot of the early years of being a parent doing what I thought I should do, which at a lot of times were like my head and my heart were at war with each other, which is really difficult. And so now I feel like I can actually just be the mom that I always wanted to be to begin with. And so I'm super thankful that I get to do that. And I don't have to feel any fear over, oh, but what if I should be doing something else? Like, I've already gone down that road. And I know a lot of younger parents have that fear of like, well, but maybe I need to be super this or that and tough love everything. And so it's harder for them. Like, I've had the experience of doing everything the way that I thought that I should do it, and finding out that doesn't guarantee anything. So I can actually do what's on my heart to do with my children. And I think that's important with any parent. Like, you can't parent in a way that is in contradiction to what you actually believe. So there's a lot of controversial topics in parenting now, whether it's screen time or, you know, all these things. And I don't think there's any one answer. And I don't think that any parent should make choices that just don't jive with them, because I think that's where we kind of get into trouble, where things get a little wonky.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So can you give a kind of dig into that a little bit more, and especially as it relates to, I mean, you mentioned as your daughter who did not want to play softball, for instance, as an example, right? And can you kind of just dig into how you wanted to, I don't know, maybe create that path for them, but then, you know, how did she end up finding to do that as opposed to instead of what you wanted her to do? And now you can use that kind of as a lesson of how, you know, you want to better support your children, you know, and listening to them and what you've learned as a mom.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I think the good thing about my husband and I that I think that we did really well was that in sports, it was a lot easier for us to be really just supportive and encouraging. We didn't feel the need to really like yell at our kids about mistakes that they made in sports. Like there's some parents that are really like, if their kid screws up, like they're working with them all day, all night until the next, you know, like they just really feel the need to pound in those lessons. Mm-hmm. And in sports, we didn't feel that at all. And so we were a lot more just kind of like enjoying the process with them, loving and encouraging them through it, just being really supportive. And so what we did was that we had an opportunity where a neighbor of ours, she was in high school at the time, and she had to do her senior project. And she had been in boxing and gone to the mainland and won titles. But locally, there's not a lot of female boxers. So what she wanted to do for her senior project was do a free boxing class for girls.
Wow.
And of course, she came over to our house. Yeah, and she was like, hey, I'm doing a free boxing class for girls. Do you guys want to come? And it just so happened she ran it right after softball season ended. We normally take the winter off anyway. And that's when she was doing it. And so we asked the girls, like, hey, do you want to try this? Like, you know, Alyssa's doing this program. You guys want to go have fun, like try something new? They're like, oh, yeah, cool, let's go. So they went through that. They got gloves. They got to go through boxing class with her. And what she did to it, that was really awesome. Like, she's amazing. She took the group of girls on field trips to different boxing clubs to introduce them to the coaches, to do a little workout there during this 12-week program, so that if they were interested in boxing afterwards, they would have a feel for which club might be a good fit for them. So, I mean, that was just amazing. Like, it was in our community. It was during the downtime. Like, I think things come together for you, like in ways that you could never plan.
Seriously.
And I just love how that happens. And so, like, we just opened the door as parents and allowed them to say yes or no. And they said yes. That free class ended. And for a while, nothing much was going on. And then the girls just came to us one day and were like, hey, we want to go to boxing. We want to go to that one club that we visited. We're like, really? You guys want to go box? They're like, yeah, we want to go. So we signed them up. We thought that our oldest was actually going to really love it too, because she's super spunky and really, you know, just very active. And it was hilarious because she just could not stop laughing when they finally got to spar with each other. Her and her sister got to spar together, and they really weren't good at boxing yet. They were just brawling. But every time she got hit, she would just crack up laughing.
Oh my
she
God.
just could not. She just could not. Yeah, she just couldn't keep a straight face. So it was like she loved it for the workout, but like it wasn't her thing. Uh-huh. But our second daughter and our third daughter, like they just like dove in, and they were like, I don't know, they just loved it. And so they did it. And our third daughter, who is now 16, even for her, it was like a sport that she liked well enough and she could do, and she was decent at it. She did well at it. But even that for her didn't seem like what she really wanted to sink her teeth into either. So, but for our second daughter, she took off with it. She did well. They actually, both of them, our second and third, they both traveled to Missouri to compete in ringside world championships. They both won a title there one summer. And so that for both of them happened between their 8th and 9th grade year. So the summer before high school was when they each won their respective titles. And then they got into high school, and our now 18-year-old, who was their second daughter, she was like, Mom, I want to do MMA. And I'm like, no, you're not doing, you're not doing MMA. I was like, I can't handle that. It's too much for me.
Seriously, I don't know what I would do if one of my boys said they wanted to do MMA.
So she, I told her, look, when you're 18 and you can make your own choices and you have your own health insurance, you can go for it. But right now I can't, like, that's just, I can't do that. You know, even when my son was born, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what if he wants to box? He's a baby, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I could let anyone hit my baby boy, you know? And then I had girls who were asking to box. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought that this would happen. But they're just like, when they stepped into the ring for the first time for their first match, I was just like, this is amazing. Like, they are so inspiring to me. I could never do that. Like, that's such a intense sport, and it's all you. You don't have teammates to rely on, you know? So I just was so impressed by the courage that they had to even get in the ring and do that. So they've always inspired me. And then, interestingly enough, our third daughter kept saying she's not going to wrestle. She's not going to wrestle. And then wrestling season came around her freshman year, and she decided to wrestle. So she's been at it, and she's also doing really well. And so she's wrestling club for the first time going into her senior year. And that's the whole new thing where she's getting challenged. And I'm so proud of her for putting herself in a situation where she's not the best in the room anymore, where she's actually being challenged, and it's uncomfortable, and it's difficult, and she actually says it's fun. She likes it. She's enjoying it. So it's pretty cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel with my oldest son. He knows football is his sport. Like, that's his favorite sport. He's dedicated, you know, to running his routes and getting things right and all that stuff. But like I said, my middle son, he's like, he just hasn't found what he wants to do just yet. He doesn't like to run, and that's the big thing. So I'm like, dude, why are you in track? Like, why? And he's like, I was like, let's try baseball. You don't have to do a lot of running in baseball. He's like, no. I was like, okay, well, I don't know. We'll see. But just like you, sports is just a major part of our world, of our life. So thank you for sharing all of that, though. And, you know, really just digging down into the emotions and things that come along with the different challenges that you face as a mom, as an athlete. I think we all share that. I think that is something that is super common, but it's not something that we talk about a lot, because for whatever reason, sports and athletes are supposed to be so tough, and you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to, you know, feel anything. Yeah. That is so far from the truth. So I really appreciate you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. For me, I just feel like I've learned so many things just through experiences, like the hard way. It's not because I'm smarter than everybody else or I have some kind of training. It's just that, you know, my kids have just taught me so many things. And for a long time, I wasn't even open to that. Like, had this attitude of like, I know what I'm doing. I'm the parent. Like, you need to just do what I say. And since kind of opening up and just being like how I am as a coach, like as a coach, I know I learn just as much from the kids as they do from me. You know, it's a learning process for all of us, and we're always learning and growing. And as a coach, if you ever stop learning, you're done. Like, that's when you become more beatable, and that's when you become less effective as a coach. And yet, for some reason, as a parent, I didn't click that over. And even with just parenting and sport, like the way that we approached it was so different than real life stuff. And in sports, we saw our children be confident and fearless and resilient and all these things that we want to see. And yet we weren't seeing that outside of sports. And so for a while we were like, what the heck is going on? And then we realized, like, well, how we parent them in sports is very different than the approach we have with everything else. And it was really scary to kind of take that positive sports parenting approach and apply it to everything. But in researching, because I homeschool, and researching like how learning actually happens, you know, and how kids can just really find the thing that they are meant to do in a way, things that really fit them. It was a scary transition to go, I think we can actually apply what we know about being a positive, supportive sports parent and actually apply that to real life too. Because if these principles apply to learning academic things, learning sports things, why would we not take that and apply it to how they learn the most important like life lessons, right? The things that we really are trying to develop in the home. Like, why would we go to what's most important and then flip it all and throw all of that out the window and do something totally different? So we had a moment when my husband and I had lots of discussions. Or like, I think we need to adjust how we're doing this, and we want to see that confidence in every area of life, not just in sports, and we see already what's working there, and I think we can take that and apply it everywhere. And so that's what we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years, and that's basically what I've been sharing, because it's just changed my whole life. Like, how I was so stressed out as a mom of teenagers, like really overwhelmed, frustrated. It felt like a constant battle. And being a mom wasn't even that fun anymore. Like, I love being a mom, but like that was not fun. I was like, could we just go from toddler years, skip the teenage years, and then have them be an adult? Like, I was really not loving the teen years.
Wow.
And since those realizations and kind of making some changes, which were super scary to make, I'll be honest with you, it's just transformed everything. And I actually love being a mom of teenagers now. I'm a lot less stressed out. I feel like I have a better handle of how we can even handle the tough things. Like, it's not easy still, but I feel like we have a much more solid foundation upon which to have critical conversations with our kids, and have created an environment in which it's a lot easier for them to come to us with the big stuff. For them to come to us with when they have boyfriend problems and, those kinds of things that are weighing on their mind that before they kind of couldn't share because they weren't supposed to have boyfriends. And we were really strict about that, and it was like, they were in relationships that they couldn't even talk to us about, and then had to go through breakups and couldn't even share that with us, had none of my guidance through any of that. And I was like, I don't want you to be in a relationship right now. I think that you could wait a little bit longer when it was a little bit more, you're all a little more mature. But if this is something that's going on, like, I want to be involved. I want to be there for you. I want you to be able to come to me and tell me like what's going on and what you're feeling, and not have to go by yourself without your mom, involved, and only your friends to lean on. So that's the kind of conversation that we had when we were in transition of like, okay, we're going to try doing things a little bit differently. Like, we see how some of these things put us in situations that we don't want to be in as parents. And we see how it's like not allowing us to have these connections that we really want to have during these critical years. And we want to change that. And so we asked them to be very patient with us, because we're going to mess it up a lot, and we still do. But it's been really awesome to have a better connection and to be able to have more of these critical conversations, and to really be a lot more involved in their life and the parts of their lives that are like, for them, really important, So it's been on my mind and on my heart to share that. That's why I changed everything that I do, my entire focus online on my Facebook page, on my website, on my Facebook group, to really just support moms and families, because we've had a situation where I got caught up in like doing anything I needed to do to help my daughter succeed. And I actually got to a point where I compromised on some values that I never should have compromised on, and that led to other problems. And so I just want to really, tell parents, like, you don't need to get sucked into that pressure that a lot of sports parents seem to be feeling. And it is so easy to get caught up in like, I will do anything to help my child succeed, that you make decisions that maybe you shouldn't make. And anytime if your mama gut has alarm bells ringing, listen to that, because there's a reason for that. So I just felt like I wanted to kind of support moms in a way that like we could talk about this stuff, because I felt like, I don't know, I just kind of felt like no one was really saying, there was no support. Like, I think we're all on that same page, you and I and Beth and Janice, just really wanting to support moms and families, because in our family it became something that kind of broke down relationships and caused problems within our family, and I don't want to see that happening to other families. Like, I don't want youth sports to be an experience that causes tension and rifts in relationships and families. I want it to be something that we navigate so well that it actually becomes something that strengthens our relationships and our connections to each other rather than tears them apart.
Right.
So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, and why I have the Super Moms of Softball Facebook group, and why I do the Eating Curveballs for Breakfast podcast. And I'm looking forward to eventually doing some more personal mentoring in a small group setting. I'm not sure exactly how that looks like or how we're going to do it, but that's also something that I really would like to do, to give moms more personal feedback, like so that they can come with whatever it is that's weighing on their mind, and they have a place to talk about it, and a place to kind of get support, and not feel so alone in the journey and feel so stressed out and overwhelmed by everything that a lot of sports moms are feeling these days.
Exactly. Like, that's incredible. I'm so inspired by listening to you say that. And I'm part of what you're talking about, but I'm still so inspired, and it's so true. Like, we all came together. So, I feel that God brought us all together for that reason.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so if you're listening to this, you will hear from us soon. We're putting things together because we are all so passionate about helping that sports parent just navigate this. It is tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. And
it is.
The second you have a child, your mind is on helping your child succeed in life. And you as an adult or as a parent knows how tough that is for yourself. So then now you have to do that for this other and it's your responsibility. So absolutely. Thank you for all that you do. I'm so serious when I say that from the bottom of my heart. Like, I just know that God is just really, he's making moves, and I'm sorry to get all like religious on you guys.
I'm so excited. No,
that is like,
no,
my heart is my belief for sure.
I have to say that I feel the exact same way. Like, the people that are coming into my life, and then the people that I've interviewed even on my own podcast, like, more than one of them have expressed how moms need a place to be able to talk about these things that they're going through. Like, one I just interviewed, she's like, she's not even a mom, but she's a coach. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I've seen lots of moms because I work with lots of athletes. She's like, I don't know, not one that's feels so much mommy guilt most of the time. And she's like, they really need a place where they can just express those fears and express those feelings, because holding it in doesn't allow for them to process. And then they're now making decisions based upon these fears. And it just doesn't allow you to be the kind of mom you really want to be for your child. And so I really know, it's just been confirmation for me, just hearing from the guests that I have that are talking about how necessary this is. And for us to be coming together and trying to create this community where we give women that safe place to be able to talk about that with people who get it, because like, our husbands are great, but they're not women. They're not moms. So I was trying to explain this to my husband last night. I'm like, I know you want to help me, and I know that, like, I can try to explain to you what it feels like to be a mom when every kid is like, mom, and like, they just don't quite go through the exact same thing. And you and I have talked about how we feel like, even for any outing, we kind of feel like, even though everybody has their own stuff, they're all trying to get things together. Like, if something is forgotten, we almost feel like it's our fault that we didn't check that this was in place and that was in place. And it's just a lot. And I think we do face unique challenges, and I think we really, we don't have to go through it alone. And I'm looking forward to really creating that community where we can support each other and, just be there as the emotional support that a lot of us kind of probably feel that we don't have right now. So it's just been amazing, the people that have been crossing paths with, and what you all are doing, and how each person has their own thing that they bring to the table. And I'm super excited for, what's to come. We don't exactly know yet what it's going to entail specifically, but we're definitely working on it, because it's just becoming more and more clear that something like this is needed. So I'm super excited to continue to work with you on a lot of it, and looking forward to seeing how you always are just continuing to show up and serve in your own group and in your own way. And I'm just super thankful that moms have so many more resources available to them. And we are are also sharing as much as we can of any resource that we find. And you do the same thing. Like, we just want to empower anyone with as many different tools so everyone can find things that can best support them in this journey, because I love it and it's worth it. But yeah, it stretches you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it is quite a journey. So I wouldn't have it any other way, but man, walking with some other people through it would be so much more wonderful. So I'm looking forward to that.
See, I told you she was special, didn't I? I don't know about you, but I just found myself relating all up and down that story. From the high school sweetheart piece to helping her athletes find the sports and activities that kept them engaged, I just loved it. I walked away with a ton of takeaways from this interview, but two that really just stuck with me were, one, really making sure to take the time to create those values for yourself and your family so you know when you're coming close to impeding on your boundaries. And number two, just learning how not to succumb to the pressure of always performing as a sports mom. I'm going to relate this to my little EE injuring his foot as an example of how I had to recognize what took priority. Yes, we all love sports. We all love watching our children play them, and we all love being involved in cheering from the sideline. But if you've taken the time to identify those values, then you'll know when you need to make a change or take action. And it may be in the opposite direction. And that's okay, because as long as you know and understand what's best for you and your family, then that's all that matters. So thank you again, Stacey, for dropping some sports mom wisdom and sharing your story with us. I know it's not necessarily easy, but definitely helpful to know that we are not alone. And in fact, there are others out there who are just like us. So thanks again all for joining me today. Please take a minute to subscribe and 2 more minutes if you don't mind, and leave a review on iTunes. You would totally make my day if you did. Let's be honest, I thrive off of your feedback, and believe me when I say it's actually something that I look forward to seeing because it really helps me to provide value to your sideline life. And fun fact, it also helps other sports moms to find us. So it would be very much appreciated if you did. Also, I'd love it if you came and joined us in our interactive community for sports moms and teen moms. It's called Sideline Hackers, and we're over in Facebook in a private Facebook group. And you can join the group by going to Facebook, searching Sideline Hackers, and clicking to request to join. And don't worry, I have quick thumbs, so you'll be in no time. You guys, if you're not joining us in our Facebook community, you're basically just missing out. It's a ton of fun, just safe place to share the show with other listeners, join in on exclusive giveaways and challenges, and to just be you as a busy sports mom who loves watching her kids play. Lastly, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook at Sideline Society, and on Twitter at Shaki Verato. I'm always posting fun moments about my own sideline life in my stories, and if you tag me and use the hashtag #SidelineLife, I love to repost my followers. So whether you feel like you need additional support with this or not, I think it's really worth taking the time to check out Stacey and her podcast, Eating Curveballs for Breakfast, which can be found wherever you listen to your podcast. Stacey also has her Facebook group, Super Moms of Softball, which is not just for softball moms, as well as an awesome ebook called Fuel for Excellence. You can actually find the link to this ebook in the show notes to this episode at sidelinesociety.com/podcast/episode 12. So thanks again all for listening in on our first Sideline MVP episode with Stacey. I really hope you got some incredible value out of it, and I look forward to supporting you with more resources in Friday's edition of Take 5 Friday. And until next time, Sideline Hackers, keep hacking that sideline because they appreciate you for it, and so do we, for all that you do.
Thanks for listening to Sideline Radio. Dive into the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at sidelinesociety.com/Sideline Radio. If you love the show, share it with a sports mom. Remember, it takes a sideline to support an athlete. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon, you sideline hacker you.